it's been driven by a president that wants to make people feel you can boo if you want. That's
Gentlemen,
okay.
will please suspend.
That's okay. This actually should not be a contentious issue. It should be a bipartisan issue to allow every Pennsylvanian to have access to their fundamental right to vote. This shouldn't be a contentious issue. Taking away the drop boxes will mean that less people, not more, vote. That's the reality. Allowing people to come from counties all across the Commonwealth into places like Philadelphia, which is what this exception is created to do, will try to have the intended effect of trying to intimidate people from using their right to vote. We have seen these tactics before. That's why the Voting Rights Act struck down a lot of these things, including allowing people to come from out of county, standing at ballot locations that have nothing to do with them trying to intimidate people. And so if folks want a free and fair process, let's have an amendment that allows everybody to vote, that makes it as easy as possible for people to vote. That's the American thing to do. That's what we ought to be doing instead of this red meat nonsense. The maker of this amendment talked about us working together. In the committee hearing, when this bill was initially brought up, there was a promise that over the summer we would get together over Zoom or wherever we had to talk about how to make the process fairer and more accessible. But what this amendment does is make the process inaccessible for Pennsylvanians. And unfortunately, it has been driven by national politics. Unfortunately, it's been driven by a president that wants to make people feel you can boo if you want. That's
Gentlemen,
okay.
will please suspend.
That's okay.
Turn off his mic. The gentleman will suspend. Prior to this speaker, 2 other speakers have been counseled to please stay on the amendment and to stay away from motive. I will give the same direction to you. Please stay focused on the amendment.
The gentleman from York, the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, said that talking about the Postal Service is diminishing people's faith in our election. But what's actually diminishing people's faith in our election are these unsupported accusations of voter fraud when none exist. Where are the accusations of voter fraud? None exist. When you look at some of the statistics that were brought up by the chair of the Appropriations Committee, pulling out a couple of articles that he fished out from Google, if you look at the math of it, it's less than 0.1% of all votes cast. I wasn't that good in math class, but that means not even 1% of votes. And if you dig into the details a little further, you find that of those cases of voter fraud, most of those cases involved voter intimidation, which this bill would allow to run rampant. Less than 0.1%. That percentage, coincidentally, is the same percentage of members in the Republican Party that have a backbone to stand up against this president. This amendment should be a bipartisan amendment. Unfortunately, it is not. And maybe I'm not allowed to talk about it, but if anybody has 2 eyes and 2 ears, they know why this amendment is being moved.